black and white. His mother was white, and his father was an African. So Providence has it so that we would be the recipients or the beneficiaries of a president who embodies both black and white. And I think that's significant. He's a biracial. And he represents both races.
And he represents a large number of individuals in the United States of America who you might not know, whose history and whose background you might not know as well as you know Obama's history and background. Which is to say that is duplicated all across, especially the southern parts of the United States, and really in all parts of the United States, that this whole thing. I think we used to call it in college miscegenation. We called it at that particular time, and that's quite common. And it only recognizes that we are all of one blood.
That's right.
Regardless of the situation that we find ourselves in. But I agree with you that in a real sense, this is a real positive kind of thing in terms of the civil rights movement. And of course, you naturally you would believe that Dr. King would have been highly pleased with
This we need to keep in mind that this is 40 years after the assassination. Dr. King was killed in 1968, and here we are in 2008 celebrating this magnificent achievement. And I think it's another step toward the fulfillment or the actualization of Dr. King's dream, because when he spoke of the promised land, of reaching the promised land, this is part of what he had in mind. Political empowerment, to run for office and hold the highest office in the land. This is part of what he had in mind, but we shouldn't confuse this tremendous development in our history, a positive development, an important development, with reaching the promised land. We aren't there yet, but this is a giant step in that direction.
And it's, as many people say, it's a step that many of us never envisioned. That would be taken during our lifetime.
That's right. And we have to keep in mind how he did this. You and I were talking earlier about the tremendous organization, the use of the internet, the use of sources of technology to reach people, and I think he will continue to do that. He was able to build this tremendous organization and ended up in the White House because of it. Now I think he will continue this, the use of the resources of this information age to reach the masses of America. And he's made it clear that I'm the president of all people, even those of you who did not support me. And I think that's the message we need to hear in this age when there's so much division and so much tension between people at so many levels.
As a matter of fact, following up that internet idea, I think that it is said that he's already made plans to continue that activity and to speak to the American people by way of the internet periodically, if not weekly, through YouTube and some of the other more popular social networks and et cetera. So I think that in a real sense, this does represent an opportunity in a real sense for people to know one another.
And for people to find a place in their hearts for him. Because I think he wants to speak in a very real and intimate way with the American people, to communicate with us, even as he worked to overcome some of the problems that afflict us all. So I think that's very, very important.
That's what they call transparency, to find out exactly. And I think that would be one of the ways to do that. You're very good. And of course, Dr. Baldwin, we've got about 2 minutes before we end this show for today. If there are some thoughts that you have and which you'd like to share over the last couple of minutes?
Yes, I'd just like to talk about how much I've been inspired by the election. I sort of rededicated myself to what I do.
You're speaking for me as well. I think that's coming. Go on.
You got to rededicate yourself to teaching.
That's right.
Scholarship. In fact, in the future, I plan to write perhaps a book on Obama's presidency and deal with the civil rights movement as a kind of foundation that he benefited from. I mean, because he said over and over that had it not been for Dr. King and others, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I've sort of rededicated myself to teaching and scholarship and to inspiring young men and women, black community, other communities, to achieve.
To be all that they can be.
To be all that you can be, to work hard, to look upon this election as a call to responsibility.
Very good.
Not something that we should be jubilant about merely, but that we should work hard.
I think you're speaking for many of us who feel the same way in terms of our renewed commitment in reference to what is going on and what has to be done. And of course, Dr. Ball, let me thank you for bringing by that excellent information and making those excellent comparisons between where we stand now and where we stood. And of course, let me also encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments, and to also remind our audience that they might find many of these titles on YouTube as well as on our website, which has already been announced. And of course, we'll be with you again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.